Hey everybody, this is Treatment. Today we have a nice big 10-game Major League Baseball slate. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It helps the channel a lot. Really do appreciate it. Let's look at the weather report first. So for this slate, we do have some weather concerns, but there's nothing that's too out of the ordinary. A couple of the early games today will have some potential weather concerns, but the normal slate only has a few games. Minnesota game, Cincinnati game, Atlanta have a little bit of risk, but not enough to really be too concerned at this point, at least. So with that said, let's get into the slate here. So this is a little bit of a tough, big slate. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring slate from the batting perspective, but we do have some pitchers that can do some stuff as well. My favorite pitcher today is Bailey Over for Minnesota. Now, he has had some ups and downs this season, including he's had 2 games against the White Sox already where he's averaged 14 fantasy points. He's given up 7 earned runs in those 2 games and a couple of home runs. So he has given up more home runs than I'd like to utilize as a top tier option, but this slate, he is in the best situation, and the White Sox seem like they are built right now to just lose the rest of the way. And I look for him to have an opportunity to have a big game here. He's also got one of the better strikeout rates on the slate, which gives him some potential as well. Then we'll look at some other GPP plays. Jack Flaherty for LA Dodgers. Now, he's got a favorable matchup against Oakland. Now, he did struggle against Oakland once earlier this season, but he's been really good lately. He's got a lot of upside here, and he's definitely worth a look. Again, Oakland could get a couple home runs here, but as long as he can get over 6 strikeouts, he can definitely pay off, and he's been doing pretty good at that lately. We'll also look at Hunter Green as a really good spot. He does have a good matchup here against San Francisco, though San Francisco has been they do have some guys that can hit some home runs in this game, especially against in Cincinnati. So that is the risk there. And I do like a couple San Francisco players on the slate, but I do like Hunter Green's strikeout potential, which definitely gives him some upside on this one. We do have a couple extreme GPP plays for you. Those are going to be Blanco and Miller here for Houston and Philadelphia. Now, they have decent matchups, but their K rates have been inconsistent this season, and they don't look particularly great on these particular slates, so that is a little bit of a concern. Tanner Hoke is also one of those plays for Boston against Texas. He's very similar to the other 2 I just mentioned, as his strikeout rate is just a little bit too low to be a heavy consideration on the slate. We do have 2 other options here that are kind of extreme GPP to Hail Mary plays. One being Grant Holmes for Atlanta. Now, he had a really solid game in his first career start, and he's got a favorable matchup against Miami, so he is an extreme GPP play. The question if he can get enough strikeouts to pay off here, but he's definitely capable of that. Looking at Cody Bradford for Texas, he's also in a good situation against Boston. I think I think this is a tough nightmare matchup, though, as Boston's hitting the ball well, and they do have some guys that project well, but he's kind of a Hail Mary play, extreme to Hail Mary play there. And then one other guy to mention is a pure Hail Mary play is Martin Perez for San Diego. He's got a favorable matchup against Colorado, though he has struggled this season for the most part. So that's what I have for the bats here. Let's look at the catchers now. Now I'm going to preface to say that my core plays today are not the strongest core plays by any stretch that we normally have. There's nobody on the slate that really jumps off the page as a good value on this one, and so these guys are not must plays, but they are top of the frame for what we like at least. So that's where we're going with. So Logan Hope is the best pick catcher available. He's got some good home run perspectives here. The Angels also project really well as a team, despite the fact they've been inconsistent. He has been hitting the ball pretty well, and he's priced nice and fair today, so he's a good option. But there's a couple guys we could consider here as alternatives, one being Francisco Alvarez for the Mets. Now, he's in the same game here. He has struggled some this season, but he is hitting the ball decently well as of late, and he's got some good home run potential despite the strikeout downside. Mitch Garver would also be a contrarian play to consider for Seattle, as he does have some potential here, but he's kind of a boom or bust play at this point. The ownership here, Travis d'Arnaud, Tyler Stevens, Logan Hope, and the owned upside guys, Francisco Alvarez and Will Smith. So let's look at first base now. This is a similar situation. Matt Olson does jump off the page as one of the better plays on the entire slate. He has struggled this season, but he's been good lately. He's kind of a home run and bust right now, though, so do keep that in mind. But he is a very solid play. He's $4,900, which is fairly expensive. Now, you could go to Pete Olson, who's a really solid, very close to being the second best player behind Olson on the slate. and he's got the same kind of home run upside. He's been hitting the ball a little bit better than Olson, but he's definitely got a little bit of a good matchup as well. So I think both those guys can be interchangeable. Now, if you can figure out how to do it, though, I would also consider Ohtani, as he's been absolutely phenomenal this season, and he's got an absolutely fantastic matchup again. So he's definitely worth a look here. The top ownership here: Jake Cronenworth, JD Martinez, Luis Arraez, Pete Alonso, Ohtani, Jake Berger, and Matt Olson. A low-owned upside sneaky guy, Kevin Biggio, and then some contrarian plays: Bryce Harper, Spencer Steer, Lamont Wade Jr., and Ryan Mountcastle. This position is the deepest by far on the slate, but Matt Olson definitely comes off as one of the better choices to start. So that's kind of how that goes. Looking at second base here, Luis Rengifo is a great looking play today. Now, he didn't come out of the game yesterday because of wrist irritation. Hopefully, he can get back today. If that's the case, then I think he's somebody you have to consider with his hitting metrics right now. Though he is somewhat hard to roster at that price point, considering the fact that he could be a little bit gimpy there. Looking at Jose Altuve, he's a good alternative, similarly priced and has a lot of upside here. But he, does need to hit a pretty solid home run or something to probably really pay off here. Some other options, the ownership at least will be Jake Cronenworth, Brandon Drury, and Xander Bogaerts. So low-owned upside guys: Gavin Lux, Chris Morel, and Jeff McNeil. And then some kind of contrarian options: Brandon Lowe, Chris Morel, and Brandon Drury are the contrarian plays on the slate. So let's look at third base here. Luis Rengifo also can play here, but Austin Riley is also a solid play. He's been improving lately. He's been scoring some good fantasy games. He seems like he's seeing the ball well right now, so he's definitely in a good spot and has some nice upside. The ownership here will be Austin Riley, Brendan Drury, and Jake Berger. Low-owned upside guys: Kevin Biggio, Kiki Hernandez, Chris Morel, Mark Ventos, and Manny Machado. And then the contrarian plays: Jose Ramirez, Rafael Devers, and Alex Bregman. I actually kind of like Bregman is a good value play in general here, so he's definitely worth a look. Looking at shortstop, this position's kind of rough. Like Elly De La Cruz and Turner both look decent, but I do think Francisco Lindor is probably the best overall play at this position. However, he is extremely expensive. He has been hitting the ball pretty good, though, lately, so he's definitely worth a look. Corey Seager also played for Texas in a tougher matchup here, but he does have that home run upside, and he's been seeing the ball pretty well as of late. But a nice value play here would be Zach Neto for the Angels, as he does draw some fantastic metrics for this game. He's been hitting the ball inconsistent this season, but he is seeing it better lately, so he's definitely worth a look. The ownership here: Francisco Lindor and Orlando Arcia, and then the low-owned upside guys: Nick Ahmed and Kiki Hernandez. I do think Arcia is a sneaky play on the slate as well, even though he's going to be somewhat high-owned. Look at outfielders: Ohtani, Jordan Alvarez, see here, Randy Arozarena at $4,900, and Tyler O'Neill are going to be our top 4 overall plays based on being over over $4,900 for that matter. But we do have some other value plays here. So Taylor Ward for the Angels looks pretty decent today. I don't think he's a must play, but he's definitely somebody that's considerable. Josh Lowe does look good for Tampa Bay, though he does have a tough matchup against Blanco, who is a capable pitcher. So he's not a must play by that situation, but he definitely looks okay. Kevin Pillar for the Angels is a little bit overpriced, but he has a favorable matchup, and he's been hitting the ball decently well lately. Conforto for San Francisco is one of the guys I do like against Hunter Green today, and so he's definitely somebody to consider. Some contrarian plays that are expensive: Ozuna being one, Spencer Steer being another. Let's see here, Kyle Schwarber, and then also Brandon Nemo. Now, those 4, they don't project quite as well as Ohtani, Alvarez, Arozarena, and Tyler O'Neill, but they do look like they have some home run potential today. Looking at some value contrarian plays: TJ Friedl for Cincinnati looks solid. Adele from the Angels also looks very interesting today, and he's nice and cheap. Yes, Skrimsky for San Francisco has some nice upside, and so does Rob Refsnyder from Boston. So the top ownership at this position: JD Martinez, Brandon Nemo, Jackson Merrill, Eloy Jimenez, Ohtani, and Jordan Alvarez. I don't really like the value plays that have that high ownership right now, but the Jurickson Profar, Eddie Rosario, Soler, and Jesse Winkler also available as top ownership plays. The low-owned upside guys, though, Toscar Hernandez, Jason Hayward, Andy Pages, Luis Robert, and Jeff McNeil. So the top overall 6 plays on the slate, Ohtani, Corey Seager, Matt Olson, Pete Alonso, Jordan Alvarez, and Luis Rengifo. Not a lot of value there, unfortunately, but we definitely have some guys that can score some big fantasy points. The top home run guys, Ohtani, Alvarez, Schwarber, Matt Olson, Marcel Ozuna, Pete Alonso, and Corey Seager. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any